There are some worrying signs on a few fronts heading into this conference in terms of what kind of international leadership is going to be present and what kind of leadership those who are present can provide. A couple of the worrying absences would be President Xi of China, President Putin of Russia. Those are obviously very high emissions countries, and their lack of participation is concerning, even though they will have delegations there, and they're citing COVID partly as a reason not to go. It doesn't point to really strong ambition from those countries or desire to speak about really strong ambition. Another concern would be the stature of President Biden going into it. He's really tried to position himself as somebody taking the U.S. back to the forefront of climate policy, which it certainly didn't under President Trump. But the challenge there is that he's having trouble getting his own domestic agenda through. In fact, his climate policies have been somewhat crumbling under opposition from some members of his own party heading in. So while I think he will try to provide leadership, and he may still be able to provide some, certainly more than the previous U.S. president would have done, it's not quite the level of leadership that everybody would have hoped for coming out of the U.S. a few months ago.
We know that humanity's future depends on keeping global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030. And we also know that so far, parties to the Paris Agreement are utterly failing to keep this target within reach.
One thing that all countries can contribute to a COP, particularly richer countries like Canada, is to try to lead by example by setting strong goals and hoping that others will follow. Another area where Canada is already trying to provide some leadership and hopefully will try to provide a little more at the conference is on climate finance for developing countries, where richer countries are supposed to be providing $100 billion annually to help them transition to lower emissions and to prepare for the impacts of climate change, but haven't really done that as much yet. So Canada and Germany have been trying to lead some effort to improve richer countries' performances on that. There's some chance for Canada, which it's already tried to do, to try to lead the transition off of coal power, which a lot of countries other than ours are still more reliant on, and there's been an effort to build an international alliance on that. There's also efforts around trying to reduce methane use, which is another area where there's some attempt at leadership here, on nature-based solutions. And then one interesting area where I think it's maybe a little limited in how far it'll go, but it's probably worth the effort, is to try to point to our usage of carbon pricing. And to try and encourage other countries to also move toward carbon pricing models, which is always in discussion, but sometimes a little hard to actually get buy-in. It's not realistic to expect COP26 or any meeting like this to solve climate change entirely. The hope at it is that it produces momentum coming out of it, so that when leaders and other officials and private sector executives and everybody else attending returns to their home countries, that they have more to work with and they're committed to more and they're more supportive of each other. And the hope is that there are raised levels of ambition, both in terms of high-level emissions reduction commitments, which many countries have already made going in, although some notable ones have not, and some more specific commitments around reducing reliance on fossil fuels or nature-based solutions or adapting to climate change impacts, that all of that is at least set in terms of goals at this, and that some structures are figured out for how countries are going to work alongside one another. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario coming out of COP would be that there really isn't much beyond platitudes, there's some finger pointing, there's an unwillingness to achieve much, and everybody comes out not only not having achieved much, but maybe contributing a little bit to public cynicism around government's willingness and capacity to deal with this existential challenge that we're facing.